Hey soccer fans, welcome back to the Feed the Fire podcast. I'm your host Nick, and today we are doing a quick episode previewing the Chicago Fire's next matchup this Saturday in Bridgeview against visiting St. Louis City FC. St. Louis City FC, I think I got all the letters right there. Anyway, we're going to take a look at who their star players are, who to watch, and what we think the outcome is going to be. I'm going to remind everyone that the show is sponsored by Skira Icelandic Spring Water, so please support our sponsor. Get out to your local 7-Eleven, grab a bottle or three, especially as the summer continues to pour the heat on here in the Chicago area. Make sure you stay hydrated. I know we got the Air and Water Show coming up this weekend, so make sure you stock up on all the Skira you need to have an enjoyable weekend. Speaking of drinks, though, I decided to start my weekend a little early this Thursday night. My wife had bought me a whiskey smoker, and I finally got the butane refills because, surprisingly, they don't ship you the butane with it. And let me just say, a smoked cocktail is much better than a non-smoked cocktail. Tasty. There we go. All right, let's jump into our content here. St. Louis City, arch rivals, arch enemies, whatever you want to call them. St. Louis for all the L's that they have been taking from the Chicago Fire and from the rest of the league this season. After that first year where they shot out of the gate and set records for an expansion club, they have fallen very far, very fast. St. Louis is now 14th out of 15 in the Western Conference on 21 points. They have 5 wins, 14 losses, and 6 draws. Most notably for the Fire this weekend, they only have 1 road victory, 9 road losses, and 2 road draws. But when you're one of the worst teams in the league, how much of that can you really say is a trend? How much of that is just you're really bad? They've scored 27 goals on the season, conceded 41 for a minus 14 goal differential. On the flip side, we've got our number 9 Chicago Fire in the East, sitting with 36 points, 10 wins, 47 goals for, 42 against, a home record of 3 wins, 4 losses, 5 draws. So as bad as St. Louis is on the road, the Fire just a little bit better at home. And they'll be playing in Bridgeview at SeatGeek. However, they did have a good performance against LAFC last weekend in Bridgeview, and they will be playing there again the following week, I believe. So we have a little bit of a home run for them in Bridgeview, kind of throwback to the 2000s there when the team started playing in Bridgeview. And hopefully the Fire can make it home, and the fans can support them there. Absolutely. By the way, real quick, if the playoffs started today, the Chicago Fire would face New York City at New York City in the play-in game, and then winner would take on Philadelphia. There's still a lot of playoff positioning going on, a lot of jockeying by Charlotte in the 7th spot, City in the 8th, Chicago in the 9th, and Red Bulls in the 10th spot. Those look to be pretty much the 7 through 10, maybe if Miami completely falls apart, or Chicago or Charlotte or New York City go on a hot streak and can jump up 6 points to catch Miami. But I don't think that's very likely given the schedules at the end of the season here. So we're looking at Charlotte, City, Chicago, and Red Bulls to be that 7 through 10, and we'll see who comes out in the play-in spot and who comes in below the line and misses out. All right, getting back to this weekend's opponent, St. Louis City. They're coming off of an kind of run of form. Their last match was a 3-1 victory at home against Nashville, but prior to that, they lost 2-1 to Minnesota. They lost 3-0 to Dallas. They defeated Portland 2-1, but then lost 3-2 at Real Salt Lake. So not coming in with the best run of forms, but they are coming off of their best performance in a long time, that 3-1 victory over Nashville. Nashville, no slouch. So what does that mean for the Fire? Are the Fire going to get a motivated St. Louis team? I don't know. They've had coaching turnover. They've had roster turnover. Do they care about taking points from an Eastern Conference opponent? These are things that we don't know yet about St. Louis's new team culture and kind of what their goals are. I think their goals are just to go out, when you're at this point in the season and you're 14th and you've had all that turnover and change, I think your goal is just to go out and play a game that you can be proud of, win, lose, or draw. And that could be dangerous to the Fire because the Fire need to start winning these games. The Fire, over their next few matches, really can make a move up the Eastern Conference standings and put a lot of pressure on the New York clubs and Charlotte to maintain their position in the standings as well. The Chicago Fire, if we're going to look ahead at those next few games, and yes, that was totally me vamping and stalling while my Internet Explorer loaded up not my Internet Explorer, I use Google Chrome. My internet web browser loaded up Chicago's schedule. They've got they are at Philadelphia next week. Apologize for that. St. Louis is the third of 3 home games for the Fire. I thought there was going to be 3 at SeatGeek, but no. Third of 3 home games for the Fire. So they are at Philly, at Miami, then home against New England and New York City. So points against St. Louis are going to be huge. Dare I say the Fire need to win this game in order to keep them in contention for a play-in spot, if not that 7th seed in the playoffs? Because after that, they end the season versus Columbus, versus Toronto, at New England. So there's going to be opportunities to take points, and they are also playing some tough competition, like I said, Philly, Miami, Columbus, Minnesota, towards the end of the season. So pressure is on Chicago to take 3 points at home against one of the worst teams in the league this year. Who do we need to look out for St. Louis City? We know that the MLS is built on parity. We know on any given game day, one team can beat the other team. Who do we have to worry about from St. Louis City? First up, their top goal scorer, João Klaus. Now, he was also the topic of some rumors about potentially leaving St. Louis City. I think that I hear something say he was going to go down to South America potentially, back to Brazil. All seem to be just rumors, all seem to be just speculation, or maybe some hopeful St. Louis City fans are thinking, Klaus has fallen off, maybe we can still make some money off of him while he's still got a decent reputation before the season's over. I don't know. But Klaus is leading the team in scoring with 8 goals. Next on the scoring list, Marcel Hartel, I think that's how you pronounce it, 4 goals on the season for him. Then Cedric Tukert with 3 goals, Edward Lewin with 3 goals, Simon Becher, 2 goals, and then you have a number of players who've all chipped in a goal for St. Louis City. As far as their setup men, it's Hartel with 3 assists, Lowen, Pompeu, Baumgartler, and Berkey. Imagine that. Roman Berkey, their goalkeeper, is tied for second on the assists for St. Louis with 2. And then there are a number of players who have 1 assist. Though if you want to look at the key passing statistic, it's Hartel far and away the go-to man there. He's got 73 key passes on the season. And then it is Conrad Wallum, who has 24. So they really don't have playmakers on this St. Louis City SC. Sorry, not FC. St. Louis City SC team here. Not playmakers, some goal scorers if they can get the opportunity. It'll be on the Chicago Fire to make sure that they're not gifted opportunities, that we know St. Louis can be opportunistic. We need to make sure the Fire play a smart, clean game in the back, and if they do that, I'm very, very confident that the Fire will come away with 3 points at home. Now, looking at St. Louis's last matchup, this was on Saturday, August 9th, again, at home, 3-1 victory over Nashville. It was Orozco in the 23rd, Klaus in the 39th, and Jong in the 66th. Hani Mukhtar gets a token goal, PK in the 85th. So those were their goal scorers. They lined up in a 4-3-3 formation, so nothing that the Fire aren't going to be familiar with, playing in a 4-3-3 themselves, and of course seeing that throughout the MLS this season. So it's going to be a good matchup, and when I see a 4-3-3 go up against a 4-3-3, I look at the wingbacks. I want to see Gutman and Barroso and Dean much higher up the field than their counterparts from St. Louis, whether that's Paddleford, Orozco, potentially Watts or Jovner. Typically they're playing in the midfield, but if they end up getting further upfield as well, I would like to see Chicago's wingbacks pinning back Paddleford and Orozco, condensing the St. Louis midfield into the middle, and not allowing them to spring those counters either down the channels or down the wings, and having them get involved in the attack. We as Chicago Fire fans know when Gutman is pushing forward, when Selassie, when he would kind of spot play that wingback position, when he's pushing forward, when Barroso and Dean are getting forward in the attack, that is when the Fire are most dangerous. And that is how this 4-3-3 for St. Louis would work as well. So keep an eye on the outside backs, keep an eye on the wingbacks, and where they're going to be. Additionally, keep an eye on Edward Lewin, and keep an eye on Hartel, the only real statistical threat as a playmaker. Obviously, everyone has the talent to do it. It's just St. Louis isn't doing it. Maybe they don't have the talent. Anyway, that is what we're looking for from St. Louis, how I expect them to try and come out and attack the Fire. I do expect the Fire to... They are the better team, both on paper and as far as results have gone, and I think just on a talent level. You watch Chicago play, you watch their individual players. You watch St. Louis play, you watch their individual players. The Fire are a better team. The Fire need to come out with 3 points. I think they will come out with 3 points. I think this is a 3-1 victory for the Chicago Fire. I do think that the Fire are going to give one up. Going to be a mistake. St. Louis is going to take advantage of it. But I think it's going to be at a point when Chicago already has either a comfortable lead, they're up 3-0, or they're already up 2-0. It's late in the game, and it's not going to really disrupt what the result will be. So I'm going to pick the Fire to win this one at home, 3-1. Keep the pressure on the New York clubs in that play-in spot for the Eastern Conference. Now, last episode, I mentioned the Sports Misery Index that ESPN.com put out, and I thought it was going to be like a whole analysis and ask you questions, kind of like some personality test or job placement test. But no, it really just says who are your favorite teams, and will tell you how miserable you are. And for those of you who just put in the Chicago Fire, then you were not surprised, probably, that the Chicago Fire were given the worst team in Major League Soccer, according to this index. It says they use a number of key data points, including regular and postseason success, expected success going into the season. Like they said, after all, a team that just won a championship might feel very differently about a 500 season than a team that just finished in the basement. So that's pretty much what they're looking at here. Expectations, regular and postseason success. Also, the Chicago Fire, though, are the only team to have a 100 on the misery index. Every other team at least had a little bit of non-misery, I guess, during the course of this evaluation. But the Chicago Fire are at a 100, given a woeful rating, the lowest of lows. We wouldn't wish this on anyone. Almost anyone, it says. So let's just search for our favorite team here, Chicago Fire FC. How long have I been a fan? So because everyone already kind of got the results, I put 15 plus years because that is how long I've been a fan. But let's say if I do it less than 5 years, the misery rating is still a 97 for the Fire. If we were to refresh this and pick the Chicago Fire for a fan of a different time period, say 5 to 10 years, or 5 to 15 years, what would that look like? That's a 100 misery. And yes, if you were a fan for over 15 years, then you would be also at a 100 level on the misery level here. Let's go back and take a look at what if we put all our Chicago teams into this misery index here. What are we going to get out of it? We're going to start with our Chicago Fire, and we're going to keep it at over 15 years. You lifelong Chicago teams here. Let's add now the Chicago Bulls, 15 plus years. Let's add now the Chicago Bears, 15 plus years. Let's add the Chicago Blackhawks for 15 plus years. I'm a White Sox fan. I'm going to throw them in there too. 15 plus years. And just for the sake of Chicago, because I know a lot of listeners out there are Cubs fans. Oh, it won't let me add the Cubs. It's just gonna add one team, I guess. So let's go back to Chicago. We'll throw in the Stars as well. 5 to 15 years. That's all that they've been around. And the Chicago Sky. We're gonna add 15 years of Chicago Sky. That means if you support every Chicago team for over 15 years, you're at a misery level of 77. Wow, that hurts. Now, if you were only a fan of the Big Four, and yes, I know I'm excluding soccer, and I know it's a soccer podcast, but if you were a fan of the Bulls, Bears, Blackhawks, and Sox, just those four, your misery rating goes up to an 80. So the Chicago teams have made their fans miserable. Let's just take away the Blackhawks and the Bears. If you're just Bulls and Sox, at least you're at a 90. Maybe the Bulls will bring you up a bit. If you're just the Bulls, you're at a 93 misery rating. Oh my goodness, this is terrible, guys. It's miserable to be a Chicago fan, and now ESPN has given us the stats to prove it. Well, there you go. Short episode this week. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, for listening, for viewing on YouTube. Again, please like, subscribe, rate, review. Leave a review, interact with us on YouTube, email me, glasshousesoccer@gmail.com. I'm trying to put out a few more shorts on YouTube. Make sure you go looking for those. And as always, enjoy the match, and let's go Fire.